Good morning, and thank you for attending the Arts in the Library's virtual festival. Today's session is Producing in 2021, Adapt or Die. As a reminder, you can submit questions throughout the session, which we will be answering at the end of the presentation, and we will get to as many as time permits. Tony Quaranta has worked across multiple major networks during his time at Discovery Communications. He assisted with the broadcast of the 2018 Winter Olympic Games in South Korea for Eurosport. Tony has also produced content for brands such as Under Armour and the Navy SEAL Foundation. He managed over 100 original video projects during the 2020 election cycle. Tony received degrees from both Mount St. Mary's University and Regent University. Life moves pretty fast, and our world moves faster. The job of a producer is to keep up, whether it's emerging technology, unpredictable world events, or even just the introduction of a new streaming service. In the world of content creation, it's adapt or die. Let's dive in to see who has adapted, who hasn't, and what we can learn from each. It is my pleasure to introduce Tony Quaranta, Producing in 2021, Adapt or Die.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Helene. I really appreciate it. How's everyone doing? Really excited to dive in here. I'm going to present my screen. So give me 1 second. All right. So, Producing in 2021, Adapt or Die. The Webster's definition of a producer is, noun, a person who supervises or finances a work, such as a staged or recorded performance for exhibition or broadcast to the public. Now, a producer as defined by a producer. The captain of the ship, setting sail and steering all things in a production or event, organizing the key players and components to make things happen, finding gold, or ultimately going down with the ship. So what does this all actually mean? Producers work with the budget. They can help drive the overall creative ideas and decisions. They can hire the crew, and they can construct the plan of execution and wrap everything in a nice bow to be delivered on time and within budget to whoever it is that's requested it. This all sounds like a lot because it is. This is why on productions, sporting events, or even short films, there are often multiple producers who each wear several hats in the process. There is a lot that can go wrong, like a lot. And truthfully, usually it does. Here are just a few examples. In pre-production, not enough investors in a project to make a creative idea happen. Surprisingly, not as many people are up to pay for a movie about space clowns. Can't lock the location needed or most desired. For reference, it's really expensive here in Norfolk to film on the Nauticus. And lastly, script revisions cut into your timeline. Creatives, especially writers, always want more time. Nothing is ever ready. And so in production, the director spends way too much money, way too much money. This cuts into the budget. My advice would be do not give them a company credit card. The talent isn't prepared, doesn't show up, or shows up with dyed hair or a shaved head. There's always just some kind of drama there that you have to work with. Your entire crew quits. Honestly, just feed the crew and they're happy. And so then lastly here is post-production. In post-production, the audio is terrible. Airplanes, motorcycles, dogs barking, and lawnmowers become the bane of your existence. The client hates it. This is truthfully when you find out really how good you are on your feet. And then lastly, someone forgot to hit record. When I'm on set, a joke I like to do is to go over to the camera team and remind them to press the little red button before we start. So all of these things can go wrong throughout a production. And most recently, and probably notably a global pandemic. In all of our creativity, we actually still cannot foresee all that can go wrong. So, how do we stay afloat in an ever-changing world with potentially terrible outcomes, with more potentially terrible outcomes than we can ever even perceive? So, for example, the Empire State Building. The Empire State Building is the tallest building in New York City. And the best way that it does is it bends and flexes. So what I mean by that is, with the building being as tall as it is up in the clouds, the building actually needs to move in order to stay structurally sound there. If it were to stay completely straight, it would not be able to adapt or move to the elements. So it needs to be able to bend and flex. And we as producers need to be able to do the exact same thing. We need to be able to bend and flex. Just as we know the wind will blow in New York City, we can count on things going wrong. But the quicker we can admit that things go wrong and start the movement forward toward a solution, the better you're going to be as a producer. So learn the discipline of planning without feeling like you need to stick exactly to your plan. Plans are great, but you have to understand that you might need to sub out steps 3 through 6, if needed, to bend and flex for your production. It doesn't mean your plan is dead. It just means your plan has to adapt. And that's what we do have to produce. That's what we have to do as producers, adapt. So almost exactly 1 year ago today, we were hit with the ultimate plan buster of all time, a global pandemic. No one could have foreseen it, except for maybe Wimbledon, in which that producer deserves quite a raise. The Wimbledon had pandemic insurance, in which they received $141 million from their insurance company, which truthfully is kind of incredible, but it is also the result of a overprepared, maybe even slightly worried producer. So the real question that I'm getting at here is, how do we adapt to what is being thrown at us? Let's take a look at who's done it really well in the last year. So this guy, Some Good News with John Krasinski. John Krasinski is actor, director, writer that you probably know from The Office, but he started a YouTube channel during the pandemic called Some Good News, in which it was himself at his house sharing good news with people stuck at home. Brilliant idea. He used it to bring on his celebrity friends while interacting with real people over Zoom. It created a community when personal community and actual physical community was all but removed. Really great move on his part. Late night hosts slowly started to catch on. Jimmy Fallon began hosting the show from his home, using his wife and his kids as filling in his different roles for segments on his show. And then Jimmy Kimmel would drive around LA interviewing celebrities from his cars while recording himself. There was no cameraman. It made them both human during a time when human connection wasn't possible. And it brought them closer to the people that they were trying to connect with. The Road Tripping Podcast. This is a LeBron James produced podcast. It's hosted by Richard Jefferson, and they were really kind of one of the first groups to do this Zoom recorded podcast where they weren't meeting in a studio, all talking around some microphones. They were talking over Zoom. And this is how they used some of their early time during the pandemic, especially when sports had shut down. And truthfully, now this has become the norm. With movies, we have Malcolm and Marie, which just came out on Netflix like a month ago or so. But Malcolm and Marie was actually filmed last summer. It was filmed over a 2-week period of time with a small crew of only 22 people, with only 12 allowed on set at one time. And it was created and written 1 week into quarantine. There are only 2 cast members, and it takes place in one location and it's shot in black and white. It's really wild. The production took place over a 2-week period of time, as I said, from end of June to beginning of July. And there was 2 weeks of quarantine for those 2 weeks. So it was a total of 1 month. The producers made the decision to bring the entire cast and crew to a location and have them quarantine in that location with daily COVID tests for 2 weeks, and then film the 2 weeks after that. They would do rehearsals in the parking lot with social distancing and masks on, as well as uh, working with camera movements and whatnot with the crew. It worked out really well. The film is out on Netflix. It's a really great film if you get a chance to watch it. But these were all decisions made by the producer to help keep everyone safe, but also to get a movie made. We also have in the movie world Red Notice. So Red Notice is a movie that stars Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, Ryan Reynolds, and Gal Gadot. They started up production. They stopped it during COVID and they picked it back up somewhere around last September, in which they actually quarantined their entire crew. They did keep daily COVID tests. And this was really the first big blockbuster movie they got back up and running post COVID. And it all had to do with adapting as a production and the producers adapted to things moving forward. Some other notables. Bobby Bones, who is the national country radio host, he created a trivia game show via Instagram Live, in which it was celebrities as well as just kind of real people that competed in a game called Super Easy Trivia. Comic-Con and other film festivals have gone virtual, including the one we're on right now. And they gives their fans opportunity to interact with creators via Zoom and other certain ways that aren't a packed out video hall. And then lastly, sports. So the NBA did the NBA bubble, in which they had virtual fans and cardboard cutouts, and other sports began to follow suit. So what happened? Producers adapted. Producers changed and thought differently in a time when things were really changing. So HBO announced this winter that they will be premiering all major Warner Brothers films throughout all of 2021. Will premiere in theater and will also premiere on their streaming service, HBO Go. Honestly, this is a great move on their part because they have no idea if they will feel comfortable, if people will feel comfortable going to the movies, or if theaters will even still be around a year from now. They made this decision as a change, and change is hard, as notable because there are very famous director or very famous filmmakers who are very upset by this. Notably, this is Christopher Nolan, and he is not happy with this move and has very much voiced his opinion. But that happens, especially with creatives in the creative world, but you have to make changes to what's going on. And that was a change that they chose to make. They had to adapt in order to move forward because the same way of doing things is no longer capable. So producers took what they were able to do and adapted, and that's what makes a great producer. The film industry overall is adapting, and we're seeing big changes from last summer through this whole year, and probably for the next few years. There's actually a new role on film set called the COVID compliance officer. This person is trained, certified to handle all COVID related protocols to make sure that production is in compliance with all of the different COVID-19 related training and whatnot. So although this position was only just created last year, this role will be on set for at least probably the next 3 to 5 years, if not longer. And so gradually, that's just a way that producers are changing to protect their crew, team, productions, and ultimately investors to continue to create content and continue moving the ball forward. So the future, as the world continues to grow and change, problems will continue to be thrown at producers, whether it's weather, unruly talent, or a global pandemic. Your job as a producer isn't to worry about the problems, but to find solutions. So with that, I thank you very much. And we're now going to open it up to a Q&A in which I will throw it back to Helena if we have any questions.
Thank you, Tony. Our first question If the pandemic wanes or as it becomes controlled and things open up more, what do you expect will happen? Will we keep all these changes, or will we go back to how it used to be in the old days?
Yeah, I think from a movie standpoint, I say for sure that I think these things are going to stay intact. I think the COVID compliance officer, I think that person is going to be on set for the next 3 to 5 years. A lot of times on a movie set or any type of production set, you would have a buffet style lunch. I don't think that that's going to come back for a little while. I think it's going to continue to be individual lunches, whether it be just box lunches or whatever it is. I'm not sure that's going to come back anytime soon. And I ultimately think it's good. I think those are good changes. I think another thing, limiting the size of crew and set to kind of like who is needed is also another good thing. Sometimes you can get out there and you'll be on a set and it starts to really balloon up as a production with the number of people that are out there. And so I think limiting the size and crew will ultimately make everyone more efficient. So I think I think for at least the next few years, yes, it's going to stay that way. Whether or not eventually it starts to build back up over time, we'll have to see.
This one goes along with that. Do you think that things will continue to be presented to be accessible at home as well into the future?
Yes. So this is something that's been going. It's been the last few years. I feel like it's been a constant battle almost between kind of creatives such as Christopher Nolan, who wants his film to be viewed in a movie theater, and streaming services where everything is being able to view at the comfort of your home or on your phone. And that's just really changing. And I think that it's probably all come to a head via this global pandemic. And so, yes, I think that you're going to still see, I think that you're going to see films become available at home more regularly. And I also believe that the idea of going to theater to see a movie will be more of a novelty than an everyday thing. And I think now you have like the Narrow here in Norfolk that kind of shows independent films. I think that they'll show maybe bigger films that are made to be viewed for the film enthusiasts that want to view Christopher Nolan's new film on an actual theater instead of at home. But I think you'll have both of those options just for convenient reasons. I think that'll be the case.
Thank you.
Yeah.
As a producer, how do you get people to buy into your ideas for solutions?
Yes, I feel like this is a question I get a lot, and I think it's a tough and interesting one. But the big thing that I think you have to remember as a producer, and this is what makes the producer great for kind of being the go-between between the creative and the studio or investors or whoever it might be, is you're able to kind of exist in both worlds. You're able to exist with the creatives, but you're also able to exist with, the suits, so to say, that have the money. And so the way you get your idea is to make it profitable, to make it interesting to someone to make money. So if you have an idea, what are other ways that you can make money off of that idea? Being, if it's a television show, does it also have the ability to be a book series as well? Like, what are other avenues that you can do to create an audience to try and make it so it's more profitable to whoever might be investing in it? So that would be my advice, is to look for multiple avenues that you can pursue with that idea.
Thank you. What are ways that you personally have adapted in 2020 as a producer?
For sure. For starters, at home, everything, where at one time you had to be wherever that production was taking place, or at least in that area to work with someone. Now it's kind of opened up that the world, or at least the US, is open to anything. Almost anyone you talk to now for a job, they don't ask you where you're located, because to them it actually doesn't matter. You just work from home. And so that's actually been great for different creatives, because where you might have been limited by where you lived, such as in this area, it might not be as big a film area as, say, in New York or LA. That's kind of becoming a bit smaller, because now everyone's at home, so they don't necessarily, it doesn't necessarily matter where you live. And with planes and travel and stuff, you can get to wherever the production is. So I would say that's really changed a lot, and really been one benefit, I think, for everyone. A big thing, I think, not just with myself, but with editors, video editors. They could be on the moon and edit it. And so that has become huge, because it's allowed folks in that job to be able to branch out and do a lot more work, because they're able to do it from their house. And that's really become huge.
Thank you. Los Angeles has had one of the worst outbreaks in the country. Has that affected where movies are being shot and produced? And if so, do you see that lasting past the pandemic?
Yeah, I think similarly, yes. I think that much like Malcolm and Marie, that movie was shot in Northern California on a 33-acre property, piece of land. And so it was very rural, very isolated. So yes, I do see that happening. It'll be interesting, because I think before this pandemic, I think things were slowly, not everything had to be filmed in New York or LA. We had seen it the last few years. I think after this pandemic, that's going to continue to skyrocket even more. I think the thing with LA that makes it tougher are the studios. The studios are out there. And so until studios start popping up elsewhere, which to some degree they are, such as in Atlanta, at least some of those things will continue to take place in LA. I know a few folks I've talked to in the industry out in LA. One of the big things is that they're just doing much smaller crews, and the crews, different teams are coming in at different times of the production. So everyone might not be there at the same time. And that's how it would work. So like the lighting team would come in and then they would leave. And then another team would set dressing would come in and then they would leave, and then the camera team would come in. And so that's kind of how it's been broken up. Yeah.
Tony, we've talked a lot about adaptation and just different solutions to just everything within the past year, and I'm sure that's expanded far beyond that. But a lot of us are finding ourselves using new technologies and coming up with our own solutions. Speaking for yourself and within your own experience, what has been your favorite technological discovery so far this year?
Technological discovery. I would say the like client monitoring systems. I think that when you're doing something that might not necessarily be film work, but it's client work, you have a lot of times where you end up with a lot of people on set that all want to watch a monitor to see what's actually happening, and rightfully so. Those people paid for that. I think now there's different technologies that existed that are allowing those people to watch from home. There's a link that they can go to, and it's almost like a private Facebook Live or live stream where they can watch what's happening on the camera on set. And that's, to me, really opened it up, because one, it allows more people, such as investors or clients, to have an interest, because they're watching it at home. But I also think that it has taken some of the pressure off of the team on set, because there aren't as many people to try and manage. It gets really difficult if you're trying to film on a small street and there's 20 people that are just under a tent that are watching. And so I think that technology has been really cool, whether it be with different cameras and the Teradek connections that they have. And so that's been going. I also think that Zoom, before March of last year, I feel like I had limited Zoom experience, and I think now it's just the norm that everyone just jumps on a Zoom, and I think it still allows people to connect, which is nice.
Great, thank you.
This may be the last question. How do you feel about the production of reality shows in 2021, especially the controversies surrounding franchises like The Bachelor?
So I have to be honest, I'm not sure I know the full controversy around it.
Neither.
So I'd have to Google that. But if I had to take a guess, I would think that the productions of reality shows would be to quarantine those contestants and let them all be safe and then let them live in the space that way. I don't know what the controversy is. Maybe someone left quarantine, or I'm not sure. So I can't fully speak to that, but I would imagine that is something that they would do for it.
Okay, I think if we have no further questions, I think we are through. And thank you so much, Tony, for that incredible presentation. And we hope you all enjoyed it and have a wonderful day.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate being a part of it. And yeah, thanks.
Thank you.